Today we're discussing the red-eyed werewolf in Wepre Park. And it's a case that took place in North Wales, where a young man and his friends saw a dogman, or a werewolf-like creature, in an area they played in as children. And for context, nestled at the estuary that sits between England and Wales is an area known as Connah's Quay, and that's where you'll find Wepre's Park. And Wepre's Park is a 160-acre country park. And the park is home to Ullo Castle, which was built in the 1100s, and it sits on a steep slope within a forested valley. It overlooks the junction of two streams. Set at the mouth of the estuary, there's a very strategic spot, and it was used as a fortification for centuries. Now it's a wonderful SSSI nature reserve, which is used by visitors and locals alike, although for some reason camping overnight is not permitted. There's an area in the park known as the Devil's Basin, which conjures up all manner of spooky thoughts, and I'm unsure how the waterfall that received its name. No doubt the answer's lost in time. And for all, this park is set close to homes. Walking here is like walking back through the years. If you go off track and into the woodlands, you can get where you are and just enjoy the solitude of nature. The report I'm sharing with you now took place at the small stocked lake in the park, known as the Rosa, and it happened to our witness Gareth when he was a young boy. He had two friends with him that day, and he buried the memory of what he encountered as best he could. Now he's older and ready to look for some answers that may explain the presence of the terrifying creature he saw that day. In his search for an answer, he found his way to BBR, and I'm grateful that he did. This is Gareth's account in his own words. Hi Deb, I'm Gareth, a 42-year-old PhD student and a researcher from North Wales with a great interest in the paranormal and cryptids from a young age. I'm writing to you as the YouTube algorithm recently suggested a video about wild camping, which I enjoyed, so I watched more of the videos created by that YouTuber, and he happened to have a video where he camped in an area where a cryptid he called a dogman had been sighted. He described this creature in great detail, and I was reacquainted with an old childhood memory. It was only a momentary experience lasting no more than about 5 seconds, but it stayed with me since. The algorithm also led me to your wonderful channel, and I've watched a couple of videos and felt inspired to reach out. It was in around 1993, when I was roughly 11 years old. I went up to the local woods, Wepre's Park in Connah's Quay, with, I believe, two of my friends. We were just playing in the woods, running around, etc. And as we were coming down what was a densely wooded downhill pathway from the fishing pond, there were trees and bushes either side of us and overhead, so it was always a shadowy area. And the pathway we were on was only short, no more than 100 metres, and it led out into the open onto football pitches and playing fields. As we were coming down the path towards the open grassland, we rounded a slight bend. We saw there was a large creature which was standing there facing us with its back to the football pitches. It was standing up on two legs, and I can't honestly remember many of its features. But I remember thinking it looked like it was a dog that was standing up on its hind legs. I guess it was about 6, 7 foot tall. My attention was drawn down to its feet as it kicked an empty drinks can along the path in our direction, which of course made a noise as it rattled towards us. That's what I remember most vividly, before we all turned and ran. Last week, I messaged one of my friends I remember being with that day, as we were still friends all these years later, though we haven't discussed that experience for decades. I don't really remember talking about it much afterwards to anyone. Anyway, I messaged him, just asking if he remembered seeing something strange near the Rosie when we were kids. He messaged back and said that he did. He remembered it looked canine in appearance and had red eyes. Anyway, as I say, it's not an amazing story with great detail, but But I've been honest without elaborating, and what I've shared is simple. But that was my authentic experience. As it was so long ago, I wondered if it did, did I really see what I thought I did? Or had the memory been altered over the years? But my friend's account gave me validation regarding my own memory. It's pretty much the only such experience I've ever had. And though I've spent many years visiting the park, I've never seen anything like that again, and neither has my friend. On a couple of occasions when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I felt extremely uncomfortable in the park, like I was in danger, and I quickly left. But I haven't felt anything threatening or uncomfortable for many years now. I really felt closely connected with the Green Man when I really started to connect with nature on a deeper level in my 20s. I suppose that was when I started to switch to more of a spiritual connection with it. I'm really looking forward to exploring your channel and your podcast to hear more stories from others. Thank you for all that you do. I find your research so fascinating, and you come across as a really good and genuine person, so it felt safe to share this with you. Well, I can validate Gareth's report straight away. There are lots of reports in the area of canine or dog-like creatures seen up on two legs, or down on all fours, or with something with red eyes that's seen in the dark. I wonder just how shocked and surprised the boys were that day when they were confronted by that dog-like creature. Try to reason what it is, what you're seeing in front of you, when there's no creature here in the UK that's known to man that looks like a dog that walks upright on its back legs. But this case is some of the known common denominators that we find in cryptid report areas in the UK. The area itself sits at a prime spot on the estuary. The food sources are vast, and the habitat changes, as you move inland, using one of the many streams that feed into the River Dee. This area is also an ancient site, once home to the upper echelon, that is now a country park visited by us commoners on a daily basis, having once been part of the Wepre Hall estate. However, nothing now remains of the hall after it was demolished in the 1960s. It also has its fair share of strange reports, one of which is as old as time, and it surrounds the mysterious Nora the Nun, and several people reported encounters with her over the years. But it isn't just the fiendish nun that's been reported there. There's also reports of a pack of spirit dogs that roam the woods at night, and even a phantom army that have been sighted in the park over the years, which is said to come from the pet cemetery at the old Wepre Hall, where generations of family dogs were buried with their own headstones. Are these phantom dogs in any way related to the dog-like creature Gareth and his friends saw that day? Now, there's another witness to a phantom dog, and her name's Allison Truesdale, and she shared her experience in the park with the Uncanny website, and she said, I saw the ghost dog at Wepre about 20 years ago. I was about 10, and I was walking through the woods with my dad. We were on the far side of the stream, right up at the top of the hill near the old brewery. We came to a clearing where the rangers had cut down all the trees, so it was basically a big square field full of tree stumps and piles of logs. I saw a dog run into the clearing, then run to the left and back into the woods. A few minutes later, he reappeared and ran towards us. I wasn't bothered at first, but my dad could probably read the dog's facial expression better than I, and he thought the dog was coming to attack us. My dad bent down to pick up one of the branches that were piled up on the floor to fight the dog off with, but by the time he stood up, that dog had gone. I remember the dog was taking really big bounds as it moved, and it looked like it was going to jump up at me. I took my eyes off the dog for a second, and then it just wasn't there anymore. We were in the middle of a clearing, so there was nowhere it could have gone. There was nothing for it to hide behind. It just vanished. I thought it was hysterical, but my poor old dad was quite freaked out by the whole thing. I do wonder what would have happened if I hadn't looked away. I might have been the first person to get eaten by a ghost dog. I don't know what breed of dog it was. It was a stocky, muscular thing, a bit like an Alsatian or a Mastiff, quite wide face, if that makes sense. I remember it being dark brown, but I asked my dad and he said it was dark grey, not brown. It was scruffy though. It looked rough and knotty, like it needed a bath and a good brush. I have a feeling the activity at Wepre Park is connected in some way. The earth's been changed so many times over the centuries, and that disturbance can create an imbalance or a tear in the land that enables such strange happenings to occur. There's also a deep connection between the Welsh people and the werewolves that roam the land there. Their stories go back through time, in written and oral tradition. The Welsh border stretched much further back then, to the areas that are now Cheshire, Lancashire and Cumbria, and the reports of large, upright dog-like creatures, fountain hounds, and red-eyed beings are still being reported in modern times. And if you enjoy those cases, make sure you check out the rest of our content. Until the next time, goodbye everyone.